Now this is a big confusion, though I would say instead of first differentiating between them, why don't you first think of something common amongst them? What is common? Now ethics is a subject. Ethics is a discipline. A subject, a discipline, and what is the scope of this discipline? Is to evaluate, is to distinguish between right and wrong. Right? Is to develop, distinguish between right and wrong. Once we distinguish between right and wrong, what do? We exhort people, we ask people, we motivate people, we seek them to go for this right. So we may develop a list of do's and don'ts. So a list of do's and don'ts developed by understanding and studying, the difference between right and wrong. That is what ethics. So ethics, is a branch of philosophy, no doubt, right? And philosophy, you can say, is not an emotional subject. It is a rational subject. Right? It is a kind of science. It is based on rationality. It is based on logic. It is based on reasoning. So you can say, ethics is what? Ethics is a subject, a discipline, a scientific discipline, which looks for or which tries to find out the difference between the right and wrong, and then develop these standards so that we can evaluate using those standards what is right, what is wrong, and ask people to follow what is right, and then eliminate or negate what is wrong. As simple as that. It comes from the Greek term. Ethikos, meaning certain sets of principles, certain sets of desirable principles, certain sets of behaviors which is desirable, which is socially desirable, and which is able to distinguish between what is socially desirable and which is not desirable, or desirable and undesirable. Ethikos. Right. A Greek term. More about the imposition, or you can say certain set of principles which distinguish this, which distinguishes the desirable from the undesirable. So now we can simplify that ethics is what? Ethics is a subject, ethics is a discipline which is based on logic and rationality, but not on emotion. Logic and rationality in search for what is right or wrong, and then provides us with a standard or a framework or a, you can say, the gold standard in order to distinguish what is right and wrong, and then helps us make right decisions. In fact, it can also be used as a framework for punishing the errant and probably rewarding those who conform to them. It may also incentivize people who do something desirable, and it may demotivate people who don't do or who do something undesirable. So it may also be used as a tool, as a framework for distinguishing the good from the bad. Right? So ethics basically is, you can say, a set of rules, a set of principles, a framework which helps us, or which helps collectively not individually, which helps us collectively to develop certain standards of good or bad, fine, and to use this for the conduct or impose certain conduct on the members of the society or an organization wherever it is used. So see, there is very important aspect of ethics, that ethics is contextual to an organization. Ethics is contextual to a system. And it is generally collective in nature. When I say contextual, that means what? That it will have certain universal norms, universal principles, universal framework, but in that context only. So code of ethics or ethics for engineers, so वो universal होगा किसमें? Engineers में, सब में नहीं. But yes, it will be certain set of benchmarks or principles which will govern the conduct of engineers. So ethics for doctors, ethics for lawyer, ethics for business. Yes. It is universal and contextual at the same time. Right? So ethics is a broad area which basically tries to find out the collective principles, the collective standards of an organization in a particular context. Right? That organization may be society, that organization may be bureaucracy, that organization may be a group of doctors or a medical fraternity, that organization would be a lawyer fraternity, it could be anything XYZ. But it will be specific and within its own context there would be certain developed ethical framework to evaluate. And that's what ethics tries to do. So ethics generally does not arise from my individual conviction or my individual aspiration or my individual viewpoint. It does not. It arises from the collective viewpoint, the collective perception, the collective standards. It arises from there. So, let us say that a small boy steals a bread from a shop. Right? Now people start chasing him. The shopkeeper starts shouting that this person is stealing the bread. The boy steals the bread. For what? For eating. He might be hungry. Various reasons, right? Steals the bread. What happens? The people chasing the boy. Here, why they are chasing the boy? Because they feel that the boy is a thief, he has stolen the bread. Right? Why boy stole the bread? Because he is hungry. He is hungry. Why? He stole the bread. He is hungry. He is called as thief. Now, what will the boy be? A hungry boy, a hungry young boy with no alternative. Let's say he does not have money. He has no relatives. He has nowhere to go. Fine? And let's say a typical Bollywood plot that he has a small sister, he has an ailing mother, and he wants to steal the bread or he wants to steal something so that he can feed his sister and mother. Right? No alternatives. Right? These alternatives are blocked. He could not do anything but only to steal the bread. So the boy steals bread, and he has his own reasons. The people see him stealing the bread, Right? And they categorize him as thief. What is a boy? He is a hungry, poor boy or kid. Right? Or he is. What is he? Can you answer this question? Do you understand the logic? Now, what is he? Now, see, he has his own agenda. Right? This is a different agenda altogether. So, people have decided or people have tried to chase him based on certain principles or certain, you can say, values, certain things, you can say, certain ideas or ideologies, you can say that way, right? That there are certain principles on the basis of which the people believed that the boy is doing something wrong. The boy did something because he never felt it is wrong. Now see, the same act viewed from two different perceptions. Which is correct? Both of them. Now this will create a confusion that whether the boy should be punished, right, or he should be let go. Right. Now such questions cannot be answered unless you understand the ethics. But what I am trying to tell you here is that ethics is not absolute, it is universal, but it is contextual. In every society, stealing is bad. Why? But in every society, humanitarian crisis, humanity is also valued. So when you are using the principle of humanity, it's correct. When using the principle of the ethical conduct, the principle of right conduct, okay, without taking into this context, then, okay, he is a thief. He should be punished. So which will weigh more than the other? Which will be more heavier than the other? Depends upon what? Okay. This is also a way of evaluation. This is also a way of which one will be heavier? Depends upon what? So this is a big confusion. Now what is morality? The word morality comes from the term moralis, Latin, or mors, which means a custom, a practice, a value, which eventually forms a habit, or which is a product of a habit over the time. So these are morals or mores or customs or traditions, which are generally related to a particular society, to a particular community, or to a particular group. But it is not a product of rationality per se. It is not the product of a scientific evaluation per se. Morality may have a dominant influence of customs and tradition where you voluntarily accept certain things and accept them to be true. Axioms, something, maxims of truth. Maxims of truth. So morality also has the same purpose, to distinguish desirable from undesirable, to distinguish right from wrong. Right? But morality is not necessarily based on logic and principles of rationality or scientific evaluation, logic and reason. Right? It will be based on the subjective aspects like norms, values, traditions, customs. And that is why there will be a lot of subjectivity in morality. There will be a relatively objectivity in ethics. Ethics is more of a collective aspect. Morality may be more of an individual or a group aspect, but which is confined to a narrow domain. So you can understand this way, that when we are trying to weigh something as good or bad, when we are trying to demarcate something as good or bad, or desirable or undesirable, right? As right or wrong, as a vice or virtue, as a righteous from corrupt, when you're trying to distinguish it, you require some principles, you require some evaluation, you require some benchmark. This benchmark is provided by morality. So in essence, the morality or let me write it here. So in essence, the morality generally comes under the domain of ethics. So that aspect of study of ethics as a subject, that aspect of study of ethics as a discipline, which helps us develop principles, which helps us develop standards as per differences in customs, practices, society, culture and other aspects, is known as morality. So ethics is a broad subject which we study in order to understand what should our actions be, what is a right action, what is a wrong action. On what basis do we evaluate this right and wrong is the morality. People say morality is more individual, morality is more private, and ethics is more public. Ethics is more public in the sense ethics is more collective, collective, whereas morality is more of individual. So take an example that there is a good son. He is a good father. Fine? He is a good brother. He is a good neighbor. But he may not be a good husband. Now, in order to be a good son to his parents, right? Or maybe to the dictats of his mother, to the directions of his mother, the son beats his wife. Now, he is a good son. In what? In the perception of the mother, who holds a particular value system that a son must accept the directions of the mother. But when viewing from the perception or perspective of the wife, he is not a good husband. From the perspective of the law, he may not be a good husband. He may be a criminal. Right? From the perspective of the neighbors, he may be a good neighbor. Now see, what are these? These are different benchmarks based on different principles, based on different contexts, based on different, you can say, principles that we are using, standards. So हमारा लेंस जैसे ही चेंज होता है, right? हमारा गुड या बैड का डेफिनेशन चेंज हो जाता है, रिलेटिव. So the son is moral with respect to mother. The son is immoral with respect to wife, but yes, with respect to law, with respect to a human behavior, with respect to some universal principle of humanity, the son is unethical. So sometimes it is possible that you may be moral, but you may not be ethical. But generally when you are ethical, you will be moral. Right? And it is also possible that if you are ethical, right, and you are moral, you may not be legal. So you can be legal, but not moral. You can be moral, but not ethical. Now see, this goes like this. So morality is more concerned with the individualism. Ethics is more concerned with the collectivism. Ethics is more objective, more universal, yet contextual in nature. Morality is more contextual, no doubt, less of universal. Morality is more individual. Morality is more subjective. Ethics can be more objective. People say morality is more intrinsic. ये आपके इनहेरेंट ट्रेट है. मोरालिटी इज मोर अनकॉन्शियस. You don't think, you may not know, and still you may do it. Customary है, tradition है, practice है, right? You will still do it, right? But ethics ऐसा नहीं करेगा. Ethics will reason it. Ethics will require a justification. So you are moral, yet you are not ethical. You are legal, yet you are not moral. Okay, these are known as gray areas. This is known as ethical relativism or moral subjectivism. अब ये कॉन्सेप्ट है जो पब्लिक सर्वेंट्स के लिए बहुत यूज होता है. ओके, केस स्टडीज में बहुत यूज होता है. When you have a choice, when you ask case studies on the logic of your individual actions, morality dominates. When you ask questions on the basis of being a public servant, the ethical arguments will dominate. Right? When you are given a situation where specifically your position, your authority is mentioned, उसमें legal obligations ज़्यादा आ जाएंगे. So ये एक perpetual cat and mouse game है. Right? Chicken egg conflict है. पहले कौन आया? पहले क्या होगा? पहले किसको देखेंगे? It's not that easy, but it's not that difficult also. Because somewhere, okay, your heart dominates your mind, somewhere your mind dominates your heart, but both are used in decisions. So in terms of being normative को आप समझिए simple है कि हमें कैसा होना चाहिए. ठीक है, शर्मा जी का बेटा, so that is a very famous phrase in the engineering. So शर्मा जी का बेटा ऐसा है. तो ये क्या है? ये एक बेंचमार्किंग है. Right? But ये क्या है? ये कोई ethical principle नहीं है, ये एक moral principle है, which is very suitable to a specific context, which is more subjective in nature. लेकिन एक अच्छा आदमी क्या होता है? एक अच्छा person क्या होता है? There would be some universal principles. एक अच्छा engineer क्या होता है? Maybe a subset of that. But you see, the basis of evaluating the engineer and the basis of evaluating a person will be very different. So these are known as gray areas. So जब आप public servant हैं, basis change हो जाता है. जब आप individual हैं, basis change हो जाता है. जब आप citizen हैं, basis change हो जाता है. जब आप political master हैं, basis change हो जाता है. क्यों? क्योंकि वहां पे आपका context change हो गया. The window of analysis will transform. So we have these all issues: the ethical subjectivism, moral subjectivism, ethical relativism, moral subjectivism, then dilemma, then we have law versus ethics versus morality. A lot of conflicts are there. So we'll be doing that work, right? So the next topic will be dealing with this: the ethics versus morality versus law, and how this will be suitable for, or how this is applicable to public servants, how this is going to define your decisions, how it is going to define your viewpoint towards the power, the authority, and the citizens, and why it is one of the bedrock principles of the case studies, or understanding the case studies or the nature of case studies. So यहाँ पे आप गलत भी और सही भी एक साथ हैं. This is the biggest dilemma, right? Thank you so much for your time. This was more of introduction, so we just skimmed through it. We are going to get into the technicalities over the time. Thank you so much.